Okay, so the recording has now started. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Center for Mindful Eating webinar entitled Eating with Attention with Alice Rosen. My name is Michelle and I'll be your host today. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Before we begin, I'd like to give you a brief introduction to the Center for Mindful Eating. TCME, as we like to call it, is for professionals who want to learn about the value of mindfulness and mindful eating. The Center for Mindful Eating does not promote or advocate any single approach to mindful eating, but rather we're committed to sharing ideas and practices, clinical experience, and research. For our members, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your support and for your membership. Without you, we wouldn't be here. We have numerous resources available to our members, including our full archive of talks, publications, networking opportunities, and more. If you need assistance at any time accessing your membership resources, please contact us at info@tcme.org. If you're not a member of the Center for Mindful Eating, you are very welcome to be here. We're happy to have you. If you'd like to learn more about membership, please visit tcme.org/membership. And if you've made a donation for today's program, we'd also like to thank you. The donations and the membership dues help to support programs like this, which help to educate and promote mindful eating to people around the world. I'd like to now introduce our speaker, Alice Rosen. Alice is the founder of the No Diet and Self-Led Eating Workshops and the Conscious Cafe. She is a faculty member of the Institute for Meditation and Psychotherapy, a certified internal family systems therapist, and former director of education for Feeding Ourselves. Alice initially trained as an expressive therapist and presently works as a psychotherapist and educator, specializing in eating and body image issues. She also addresses more general issues such as anxiety, mood disorders, life transitions, and chronic pain and stress. Alice leads mindfulness-based experiential workshops and groups designed to instill a healthy and satisfying relationship with food. You can learn more about her work at theconsciouscafe.org. She has authored and produced the CD set, The Feeding Ourselves Method, a guide to achieving a healthy relationship with food, which is available on her website. So without further ado, I'd like to turn over this webinar to Alice. Again, this program is being recorded and will be available following the presentation. And I just made a mistake myself, Alice. We were going to do a quick poll at the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that before I turn it over to you. So everyone should see our questions here. Please list if you are a professional provider or not, and then if so, which type of profession are you in? And hopefully everyone can see that poll. I don't see any results coming in. There they are. Okay, good. And then the second question is, do you currently have a mindful eating practice of your own? And if you are a professional, are you providing mindful eating as part of your services? And we'll give another, we've got about half the folks have voted, so we'll give another 10 seconds or so. Excuse me while I took a sip of my coffee. Okay, that looks good. So I'll go ahead and end the poll, and then we should be able to see the results. I think everyone can see them. So we have nutritionists and dietitians making up about 60% of our group today, and about 30% of our group are not a professional, here for personal interest, and more than half have a mindful eating practice of their own, and a 65% providing mindful eating services as mindful eating as part of their professional services. So thank you everyone for sharing that information. It helps our presenter Alice to know who she's talking to. Yeah, so thank you. So now I will turn it over to you, Alice. Thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michelle. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming on a Monday morning if you're in this time zone. So I would like to begin. First of all, I'd like to say that anyone can ask questions or raise their hand at any time during this presentation. I think it would be easier that way. I'd like to begin by telling you really why I am here. It's a good story, and I'm very passionate about being here. So this all began in 1979 I had been a compulsive eater for at least 13 years with zero insight about how to be in charge of my eating. Felt very out of control. Of course, I had tried things like restriction and fasting and certain types of dieting, but nothing got to the root of why I ate like I did. And in 1979, I took what I knew to be my last long meditation retreat for a long time, because I was about to get my master's degree and enter the workforce. And I was also about to get married, and I knew my life would change radically. I wouldn't have that free time to go on retreats. I'd been meditating for about 6 years before that, but in contemplating my last chance to get so-called enlightened, I had to admit to myself that, especially in my past retreats and probably in my daily practice, that I had wasted a lot of time dwelling on past and future and daydreaming and planning and indulging in cravings and so-called creative thoughts, whatever, and fantasy during my practice, always thinking, well, I'll in the next minute or in the next sitting, I'll pay more attention. So I had to admit that to myself. So it was with a sense of urgency that I came to this retreat, and I made a vow. I made a strong intention that I was going to be mindful during every aspect of this retreat, not only during formal sitting meditation and formal walking meditation, but even during transitions, rest periods, during my yogi job, and even while eating. Now, mindful eating wasn't a term back then, and I just want to show you this. I did some research in 1979. These were the only books that I know of that were out. If anyone knows of anything else, please let me know. I never got to see the anti-diet book. It's out of print, but it sounds like a really good book. The Psychologist Eat Anything Diet by the Pearsons was a book on listening to what your body wants to eat in the moment, rather than listening to should. So it had a slight mindfulness base to it about listening. And it was a weight-focused book, but people ate whatever they wanted. Instead of eating the whole meal, they ate just what they wanted, just an appetizer and dessert. And they discovered they were in better charge of their body from that. And then One Bowl, which is still in print, a second edition, was one of the most basic mindfulness-based. He paid very close attention to what he wanted to eat and how he ate. And then Fat is a Feminist Issue, which is more on the political side, but it was a non-diet book. So this was all there was. I knew nothing about mindful eating. But I had remembered a few years before, when I was on a retreat, that the teacher gave us instructions about just how to eat, just like they gave us instructions about how to sit. And the instructions were, notice the intention to pick up the utensil or the food. There's an intention. And then notice that happening, notice the picking up, noticing the transit, putting the utensil down, and then fully experiencing the food in the mouth with the chewing and the tasting and the feeling of texture, and experiencing the swallowing. And then again, noticing the intention to pick up the food. So I went in there with laser beam intention, and at a very first opportunity to eat, which was really even before the retreat started, they served apples in those days as the evening snack. And I did just that. I followed those instructions with my apple. And to my utter surprise, when there was more than half the apple still there, I noticed that I couldn't find the intention to pick up the apple again. And that really puzzled me, because my mind said, well, you hardly ate all day. You were rushing around getting ready to come here. You're going to be hungry during the night. Don't throw the apple away. You're going to waste it, all that kind of stuff. But I went back to listening, and I still couldn't find the intention. And I realized that I was just simply fine. There was no desire coming from my body for apple. So I thought, And I found that to be so curious that I certainly decided to do that for all the meals, which I already intended to do. Breakfast, very big meals with luscious, wonderful food, and of course lunches, which were the highlight of the day since nothing else is happening on a retreat. And in the past, these very sumptuous and savory meals were endlessly seductive. And I always ate until I was uncomfortable and fully sedated. And then I'd be obsessing about food the whole day. So my morning practice, by mid-morning, I'd be meditating on, I wonder what's for lunch, I wonder what's for lunch. And my after lunch practice would be, oh my God, I can't believe I ate so much. And so it went over and over again. And in all these meals, I ended up eating less than half of what I normally ate. But I was more satisfied than I could ever remember being. And these obsessive thoughts that I had about food just simply fell away. My body felt better. I had more energy. I wasn't so logy anymore. And as I said, all the cravings and later regrets were gone. I felt liberated, and I thought I had discovered something, and I couldn't wait to share it with the world. And obviously there wasn't that much information about that. But I did discover a local group called Feeding Ourselves, which was called Conscious Eating, same idea about paying attention. And I ended up connecting with Feeding with Ourselves and working for, I think, 26 years with Feeding Ourselves. So luckily I found a way to channel what I knew. And I've been on this path ever since, and very passionate about that. And my real joy is in sharing this experience with others, because I actually believe that you can read things, but for me, it's the experience. So reading and theory is very nice, but unless one actually has an experience of liberation, it's very hard to continue with that. So that's what I want to share with everybody, and we're going to have a little exercise of that together. So I hope you'll join me in that. So I want to prepare the ground. I hope everyone brought some kind of food, I can do this anyway, but I asked you you could bring any food, but a food that has some kind of pull for you, where you feel you're less in control. So for some people, it could be, pasta, or it could be salty and fatty or sweet foods, but you choose. So does everyone have a food? I'd just like to know if people have a food, because this is the chance to connect, to experience.
It looks like people are raising their hands that they have food. If people can grab something, that would be great. A lot of people have raised their hands, so I'm assuming that means they're all set. Yeah.
Okay, and obviously you don't have to participate, but it's a little, obviously, as I said, experience is good. So this is just my little continuum. It's not very deep. About on one end of the continuum is a healthy relationship with food, and the other end is a disordered. Now, by healthy relationship, this has nothing in my mind to do with what you eat. Okay, it's about how you eat. What's the quality of your relationship, as if it was a relationship with another human. What is it, a healthy relationship? And on disordered, I say it's against the natural order, because we are initially equipped to have an ordered relationship, a healthy relationship with food. So we're gonna go through these, and I'm gonna ask you just to have a sense of where you stand, maybe with food in general or with this particular food. You can choose. So on a healthy relationship with food, one is at peace and at ease. Just, are you, with this particular food, do you feel at peace and at ease, or do you have some kind of tension? With a healthy relationship, you experience pleasure and satisfaction in eating. You know that you're internally regulated and your eating is connected to that bodily reality, and therefore inherently know what is enough. That where I discovered that what was enough. So that although food is necessary for life, it doesn't dominate life. And there's a definite respect for something so essential, but there's an ability to be flexible in the face of food and readjust naturally to errors in judgment and situations which are out of control, which could happen any day or every day. So I ate more than I wanted or more than I feel comfortable with, but I'll just wait for my hunger to arise next time. I won't say, well, tomorrow I won't eat this or won't eat that. If there's any questions about that, I'd like to hear. Okay. And then on the other end is feeling out of control, feeling anxiety, shame, and conflict around that food, feeling controlled by the food. If that food is there, you must eat it. If it's on the desk in the office, in the nurse's station, you must take it wherever you're, and feeling a disconnect from bodily reality. And in that sense there's a sense of never being satisfied. Maybe one more bite would do it. And therefore food tends to dominate life. It might be apparent, but that one in a disordered relationship eats food for reasons other than nourishment. And there's a general obsession with food. So just put a mark in your mind where you fall on that continuum. And with some curiosity, you might ask yourself, what type of relationship would I want with this food as opposed to exiling the food from my life, from your life? So where might you want to be? And after the experiment, we'll see if there's any possible shift, or if you see that you could shift. So there's something on the top of my screen. Is that showing? Okay, no. So let's do a little mindful check-in. I see most of you have a practice. Get comfortable in your seat and feel your feet on the floor if that's possible. And allow your spine to be released, maybe lengthening rather than slumping. Tune into your body and your breath. Just notice what is your present bodily reality. It's Monday morning. How do you feel? Just basically, are you tired or rested or energetic? Are you hungry? Are you full? In general, are you feeling pleasant or unpleasant sensations? And where is that if there is unpleasant? Is it a general sensation of unpleasant, or is it in your neck, etc.? So what's the truth of this moment without judgment? Breathe into that truth of bodily reality. And then there's always thoughts, most always thoughts. What kind of thoughts are running through you? Is there something critical or anxious? Are you saying, come on, anticipating, like impatient, anticipating, or any bored, future or past-oriented thoughts? Are there happy thoughts or kind thoughts? Just noticing where your mind is and how it connects with your body. And then, of course, the more subtle sensations or of feelings. Basic, I like to use this because they rhyme, but mad, glad, sad, scared. Of course, there's hundreds of words under each of those. Or detached, There's a calmness. Again, non-judgmental. This is what there is right now on this Monday morning, June 5th. And then back to thoughts, some more basic thoughts about what are your beliefs? And in this case, about the food, I just used cookies, but what is your actual belief about this food that you're going to be experimenting with? Are they essentially bad? You shouldn't eat them. I can't control myself around them. Or I sure as heck deserve these cookies. You know, that kind of stuff. Just to know, and then we'll have a check-in afterwards. Okay. Now let's prepare ourselves to mindfully experience this particular food. So I'd like you to first begin by looking at it. If it has wrapping, we'll take off the wrapping, but first look at it as it is. Is the wrapping like very attractive or just plain old wrapping? Notice if it's on a napkin or a plate. So if there is wrapping, just with awareness, sensing everything, unwrap your food, and you can listen also to the crunch or crinkle of the wrapping. In that case, the first thing you might notice is aroma. But there it is now sitting in front of you, that food. And first look at it. Appreciate the shape. And why is it that shape? For some reason, most cookies are round. Some are elongated as I think about it. What's the shape and what are the colorings? Can you see places where it's baked or browned? You can see the texture. And just note, is this food as it sits here right now, is it appealing to me? Is it controlling me or is it appealing to me? And have you ever spent that much time just looking at it? And just note if you're feeling angry or impatient. I can totally relate to that. And then bring it up to your nose or bring your head down and smell it and get the aroma. And can you tell by the aroma, what do you smell? Can you smell traces of butter? Or say brown sugar? Or if it's savory food, can you smell spices? What do you smell? And notice again, is that appealing? And do you actually want it right now? Okay. So now let's prepare to take our first bite. And as I said, we'll do it the same way with intention. So instead of having your arm move sort of by itself, notice that there actually does need to be an intention in order to pick up your hand and pick up the food or the utensil and bring it to your mouth. So do that with fully getting that. I intend to pick up my hand. I'm going to the food. I'm bringing it towards my mouth. Put the utensil down or the food down. Fully experiment and experience it in your mouth. So taste, texture, very, very important. The aroma as it continues. And I'm going to ask you to chew it till it's all gone, till it's fully mixed in your mouth, and every morsel of it is soft. Chewing, 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 chewing. Some of it will naturally go down your throat as you chew. But in the end, there will be a conscious swallow. And imagine that it does go down your esophagus into your stomach. And notice, was that satisfying? Did this cookie deliver? Is it what I wanted? Regardless of forces telling you that you should or shouldn't eat it, just notice. And then for a few more minutes, you can continue as just like this, remembering the intention to eat this food and mindfully taste and savor it and swallow it until you feel like you can't find an intention to pick it up anymore, or you've had enough of that taste. Or it could be the opposite. I wish there were more, whatever your experience is. So I'm going to let you be on your own for a few minutes. And Michelle, if you could help me end it, or people can note when they're finished, that would be helpful. And if you find yourself distracted, as you all know, just go back, checking predominant sensations related to eating.
And this is Michelle. As people are finishing, if you could just click the raise hand icon, I'll get a sense of people as they finish over the next minute or so. Okay, Alice, we have just over half of the folks have raised their hand.
And more than that, we're,
Mm-hmm.
oh dear, I forgot, hold on, made a goof. Sorry. Did more than half people have food?
That I'm not sure. So I would say to go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry if you're left behind here, because this is an important thing, but clearly you can do this, and you all know this, many of you know this, you can do this again for yourself. This is something you can do every meal. But thank you for participating in this. So let's look at what that experience is like. Okay. And what if you haven't finished, what is it like maybe to put that food aside? Again, if you're hungry, of course, maybe you will still be eating. And I did ask that question, were you hungry before? So what was your experience? Was this particular food satisfying? Do you actually want more, or do you feel like, that was good? Or did you discover, I don't really like that food now that I'm eating it in that way. So what did you discover? And after we go through these these checkpoints, I would like some discussion. Are there any changes in your bodily reality? Like, are you no longer hungry, or are you still hungry? Is there anything pleasant or unpleasant? Any changes in your sense of your body? Calm or anxious? Can have your thoughts change? Has your mind state changed? Note any critical or anxious thoughts. Note if you're just going elsewhere with your mind, that you find this boring. And then notice your mood. Is there any change in your mood when you focus on just one thing? And do you have any shifting of your beliefs towards this food? I'm very curious about that. So have you shifted in any way on this relationship scale? So if there's any discussion, I'd love to hear any comments.
Okay, this is Michelle, and you can use your comment box, your chat box, or the Q&A option to share. And I'd love to, I'm going to go ahead and lower all hands from before, and then if you would like to share your experience with all of us, if you raise your hand now, we'll go ahead and promote you to panelists so that you can interact with us live. We do have some comments coming in. I feel more grounded. Thank you, Anita. And any other comments or sharing that participants would like to make? This is the time. And we have, let's see, also an experience of feeling more calm. Thank you, Doreen. Any other changes? Could you show that scale again?
Yep.
Another comment here from Brandy, feeling more at ease after, and didn't feel full before, but now I feel full. Could you repeat a few of your comments, Alice, and your question?
You mean this check-in after?
Yeah, the check-in after. Here we go. From Paula, I ate one bite and it tasted good, but I found that I didn't feel hungry and so quit eating. I feel content.
That's a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a miracle.
The miracle of mindful eating.
That's the next talk.
Yeah. And again here from Bianca, noticing what I thought was residual hunger. When I slowed down, in fact, I didn't want to eat anything more.
I'm curious if there is anyone who had an experience on the other end of that continuum.
Could you show us that continuum again, Alice? There we go.
Like just, more anxiety or shame or anger or screw this, don't slow me down, that kind of stuff. I mean, a resistance, because I don't know about you, but a lot of my clients are afraid to slow down and taste.
We have from Michael, I feel more aware of food, my intake and control, more easily satisfied with smaller amounts. So nothing else has come in on the disordered relationship side. And we recognize it's hard doing a webinar like this. Anita's just shared that I didn't feel this today, but sometimes I feel like I don't eat now. If I don't eat now, I might not get some later. So sounds like a little
Right.
future anxiety related.
Yeah, it's here. I better eat it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then Bianca, I did manage to slow down and left a half a piece of toast, but I'm noticing some anxiety about the toast remaining on my plate. And then from Paula, this experience would be very different in the evening when I tend to continue to snack when I'm not really hungry. I would feel some regret.
Yeah. So this is an isolated experience. And there's so many, it's so complicated, isn't it? I didn't remember the name of the person who had the toast, but you can take the toast out of your view and put it in the refrigerator, put it on the counter, and let the toast know that if you're hungry, you'll come back to it. Experiment with that.
And here's another one, Alice, from Gina. I don't feel resistance, but I did realize that I think I buy these crackers because they are convenient and quick to eat, but I don't really even like them. I realize that I eat very quickly at work because I feel that I don't have time.
Oh God, you're just like it's just such a wonderful comment. Thanks for that comment. So that we could go into a whole talk about, maybe it'll come up in the talk about why we buy things and how we don't really listen to ourselves for expediency. That might inform you for the next time. And I think you're not alone in that.
And that's all that's come in, Alice, in terms of comments.
Okay. Well, I think this is just a short experiment. Obviously, you can do it by yourself, and sometimes the forces in the evening when you come home from work and you're tired, and whatever the circumstances are about being alone or whatever it might be, are much more challenging. But I find when I do this experiment, when there's less distractions or less resistance to it, that it actually feeds into more difficult, more challenging times. Like, you don't learn to drive a car on the freeway. You first learn to drive your car in the parking lot. So I guess I'm going to move on, okay? And again, just notice if there was a shift, or if there could be not even a shift, it could be just a leaning. If you're somewhere on that continuum, could it be possible that you could lean more in the direction towards a healthy relationship with that food? Just, is it possible? That's the question. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you for doing this experiment. It's hard when we can't see each other. Okay. Now, okay, here we are. So as you all know, I'm on the board of the Center for Mindful Eating. I took the opportunity a while back, it's no longer there, to become a lifetime member, because when I discovered TCME, I was just, I thought I was all alone in the world being a mindful, teaching mindful eating. I didn't feel like I had many colleagues, and this is a wonderful support system. And I encourage any of you who are not members to please join. But as you all might know, it's a forum for professionals across all disciplines who are interested in developing, deepening, and understanding more the value and importance of mindful eating. And TCME, the board members have created principles intended to guide people who are interested in mindful eating. And I think this took a lot of work on the board members. I wasn't there then, but to codify what are our principles, it was a very big job, because you could yeah, you could just go crazy with saying things, and they had to make sure what everything that they said was meaningful. And so what I want to do is structure this talk around those principles. And if you go on to the TCME, you'll find those principles. You can find them. And I'm spreading them out and talking about them. But so this is the backbone of the talk. It's very easy to read a list of principles and go, yeah, 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 yeah. And it doesn't really go in. So I'm hoping this will go in. So let's begin. Here's a basic one. Our relationship to food is a central one that reflects our attitude towards our environment and ourselves. Now, think into this, and we can have discussion about any of these principles, such as when you go to the store and buy those crackers that you don't really want, and you just get them because they're convenient. How does that reflect attitude towards, it could be environment and towards ourselves, and we can get very big with this. So how we relate to food, which is the center of our life, which is necessary for survival, it reflects a lot. Again, any questions or comments? Another principle is that as a practice, mindful eating can bring us awareness of our own actions, thoughts, feelings, motivations, and insights into the roots of health and contentment. This is a very broad statement. But even hearing about your comments with this little practice, I see that some of you got some insight from that. So by paying attention as we eat can bring us a lot of insight. And this will go deeper into it. So what is mindfulness? The going definition is that mindfulness is deliberately, and I like to use the word intentionally because that's the basis of my talk, paying attention non-judgmentally in the present moment. I think that's a really good definition. I guess that's John Kabat-Zinn's. So mindfulness encompasses everything, both internal and external. Internal processes. I feel my stomach grumbling, my neck hurts. I said that twice. I guess my neck hurts. And external environments. And therefore being both aware of your thoughts and your emotions and your physical sensations in the present moment. And including, as I said, the outside environment. It's a lot. So this one really interests me because this is what happened to me. Mindfulness cultivates the possibility of freeing yourself of reactive, habitual patterns of thinking, feeling, and acting. This is the bonus. Wouldn't we all like to be free of being reactive on towards everything, in fact, but since food is such a big deal, and wouldn't we all like to be free of habitual patterns? I come home from work and I always eat this. I always open the refrigerator before I even put down my handbag, thinking those habitual patterns. And the habitual patterns of thinking in terms of I deserve this, or I don't deserve this, or I need to restrict from this, or I need to eat it because it's there. So that would be amazing. And in that, it promotes a balance. It promotes choice, because if you discover from mindful eating that you don't really want that, you could take a moment and say, I would really rather have this. And in that, there's wisdom. And there's always acceptance of what is, because you can't always get what you want. I'm going to start singing. Whenever I say that, I want to sing. Well, this is my depiction of mindfulness. I literally see it as the force of awareness. I see the force of awareness as a very fine micrometers thin wedge. And the wedge can be by practicing mindfulness, it tamps down the wedge. And as it gets tamped down, more space gets created between these impulsive, reactive thoughts and the compulsive action, which is in some cases, it's like it's entwined. There's no, most of us aren't aware of the difference between the impulsive thought and the compulsion. So, that you could even say, what's that intention and what's the action? What's the intention there? And by tamping down the force of awareness, you create space. And it's in that space that wisdom and choice can be cultivated. So in addition, mindful eating, very getting specific here, is becoming aware of physical hunger and satiety cues to guide your decision to begin and to end eating. So when do we eat? We eat when we're hungry. And there's a baby who is very hungry and he's eating. He's not doing something else. He's eating. And then when do we stop? We stop when we're no longer hungry. This is like, even a baby knows this. You don't need to have a degree in nutrition or a PhD to know when to stop or when to eat. So we eat when we're no longer hungry. It's self-evident until we get conditioned to do otherwise. So I say, this is not part of the principles, if you're eating when you're not hungry, or you're not eating when you are hungry, because I think we see, as professionals, we see both, or in yourself, you see both sides of that. I'm hungry, but I'm not going to eat because I want to, lose a little weight, or I'm going to be good by not eating when I'm hungry. So if you're doing either of those, something's eating you. Something else is going on when you're not listening to your bodily reality. And I very much believe that mindfulness and sometimes psychotherapy can help to investigate and address the roots of what I'll call this emotional eating. This is emotional eating, and emotional eating is what is on the side of the scale, of the continuum of a disordered eating. There's usually an emotional component of that. Any questions or comments thus far?
No new questions have come in yet, but both channels are open, the Q&A and the chat. There's a comment, I love the quote, "Something is eating you," from Bianca, thank you. And anybody else like to make any comments? Please do so. Both channels are open, so you can continue to do so at any point, and then I will share them with all of us and with Alice.
Okay, so another plug for mindfulness. I mean, my experience was so mind-blowing to me. My original training was in Zen, and very, very focused. And I think that really helped me. But when I made this intention to pay attention, the psychological and some economic roots of my relationship with food just literally fell away. I mean, so by being able to focus, it's just now they have the neurological research of what happens in the brain, but I still like to call it magic. So also, mindful eating is allowing yourself to become aware of the positive and nurturing opportunities that are available through food selection and through preparation, by just being in touch with yourself. So it gets broader here, because we actually essentially, we're supposed to be nurtured by food. And this is a picture which my daughter-in-law sent me after she went to the farmer's market. And she went there and she saw these beautiful greens and the flowers, and it just excited her. She so wanted this. I mean, it was so attractive to her in so many ways. And she wanted to put it in a nice salad bowl. And just, I mean, it looks yummy, doesn't it? And so this is mindful selection and preparation. And she enjoyed every single, taste and the different flavors of the different aspects of the greens, from the bitter to the all the different flavors of greens. So mindful eating is using all of our senses, not just a sense of urgency, but using all of our senses and choosing to eat food that's both satisfying and nourishing. And you can't say in the moment what would be nourishing for one person or another. I mean, so this is an example of, this is a cheesecake that I make, which when I want it, it's just so delicious. And it engages all of my senses, certainly sight, the beautiful colors and the texture that you can see. And when I taste the creaminess and then the pop of the berries and the crunch of the graham cracker crust, it's absolutely delightful. I don't have to think about, is this good or bad for me? I totally trust my body when I want to eat this food. But acknowledging, mindful eating is acknowledging responses to food, all responses, be they likes, dislikes, or neutral, without judgment. So in fact, if you offered me that cheesecake right now, I don't really want cheesecake. My body's not in the mood for cheesecake. Or even if I wanted cheesecake, what if too much lemon was put in it or something? And I found that, didn't really work for me right now. So I'm the expert. I get to acknowledge my own responses to food instead of someone saying, eat it, it's good for you, eat it, I made it for you. You just never know how your body is going to respond in a moment. I have a friend who bought me some cookies once because once he brought them to me and I really liked them. And then he gave them to me again. He said, and I didn't want to, I thought you liked them. I go, I liked it then. I don't specifically want it now. So, I mean, you're totally free, not beholden. This is another depiction of mine, which I really like. So pyramid schmyramid. I think a mindful eater naturally chooses to eat that which nourishes herself on a cellular level, because it's, it comes down to that our cells need these different nutrients and everything. And we do not need to listen to external dictates. So I believe that if it is indeed a food pyramid, the relative proportions of foods that we should eat, I believe that the food pyramid is actually a depiction of what a being, an attuned eater who was not food deprived. It's a depiction. Let's take it for a week or 2 weeks. That would be the relative proportion of the foods that the constituents of food that an attuned eater would eat. It's not the other way around. I do not believe in shoulds. That doesn't mean that someone buying food for the family isn't aware of what an attuned eater would have that general proportion of foods in the refrigerator and pantry. But it really gets me when someone says, this is what you should. You're free. So back to the principles, someone who eats mindfully, again, acknowledges that there's no right or wrong way to eat, but varying degrees of awareness surrounding experience of food. So being that we're all individuals, we come from different places, different legacies, different cultures, we get to fashion our own way of mindful eating and get to know that each of our eating experiences are unique. But someone who eats mindfully does choose does have an intention to direct attention to eating on a moment by moment basis. Now, it's amazing how moments can go by and you go, oh my God, I forgot. But so coming back is really the basis in my mind of mindfulness, returning to attention. And in that, someone who eats mindfully just totally gains awareness of how they can make choices that support their own health and well-being. You know, sort of a no-brainer there. I mentioned how food is the center of everything, but by eating mindfully, it's really possible to become aware of the interconnection. Like, where did this food come from? Of earth, living beings, not living beings, living beings, our cultural practices, our cultural legacies, our community, and the impact of food choices on these systems. So mindfulness helps us realize that what we do makes a difference. Just throw a pebble in the pond and it has rings of reactivity, or not reactivity, but it affects. So food is literally connected to everything. If we ran out of food, if there was no food, it would all grind to a halt. There would be nothing. Nothing would exist. Not like our great cities or our great industries or the internet, it would all crash. But food is so connected, first of all, to all of nature. Sun, wind, earth, the rain. It's a miracle. Life is essentially a miracle. The intimacy of eating, that we actually ingest food and chew it up, and it goes into our stomach and then gets digested and then gets sent by the blood to all the cells and they use it. I mean, I think it's quite intimate and quite a miracle. And it's nice to remember about the miracle. And food is definitely connected to our survival. It is survival. And in anything that's connected to survival includes pleasure and pain and anything in between. Food is so connected on an emotional level. It's definitely emotionally connected, and of course we want to explore that when we're when we're looking into emotional eating. But it's connected to mother and dependency. In the beginning, we're totally dependent, and we could be dependent as a society because there's food deprivation. And so food is so connected to comfort. On the other hand, food is connected to everything on the outside of us, to power, economics, politics. I remember going to Egypt and discovering that they had something near the Nile, they had these incredible constructions, and underground they created these tunnels, and they had something called the Nile-o-meter. And depending on how high the Nile River was that year, then the taxes were, if it was high and it created fertile ground, then the taxes were more. If the Nile was low, taxes were less. Directly connected. And of course, food is connected so much to our culture and community, to celebration and connection. So food, very, very important. And I wonder why our society grieves me that we disrespect it so much. So in that, I give this grace to my clients. I call this a grace mat. I've made them for people to use as placemats. And I got this from another teacher, but I think this encompasses it all, and I'm going to read it to you. I think in itself, it's a teaching. We thank the sun, the wind, the earth, the rain for this beautiful food. We thank all the creatures who gave their lives to feed us, and all the human effort that went into bringing it to us. Think about all the human effort. May we take it in, chew it, swallow it, and may it nourish us. And then may we return the energy to the world in ways which lessen suffering and bring joy. I have a fantasy of teaching that to kids in K through 5. Like that should be a basic understanding that you don't just eat food without paying attention, and that the energy, in some level, we're beholden to return that energy in ways which lessen suffering and bring joy. Hope I'm not being preachy here. So I'm just summarizing this or adding my own stuff. The bottom line is each individual is the expert of what, when, and how much to eat. I would switch it around and say when, what, and how much to eat. But only I know what my body wants in this moment, what would satisfy it. In that, all foods are legal. There's no bad foods. And that now with mindful eating, we can experience true pleasure rather than that sort of pleasure of overeating or getting, going crazy and or just eating whatever you want and overeating. True pleasure, I find very amazing. This is how I see it now. So we'll have like a parabola. So on this end, I'm hungry, and I start eating, and I'm rising up the scale. I don't know if you can see. And at some point, I'm still hungry, I'm not satisfied. At some point, if I'm paying attention, as some of you did, I'm satisfied. I feel, as someone said, I'm content, I'm good. Now, what happens if we have emotional eating, we're not paying attention? A part of our brain says, well, if you had one more bite, you'd feel better. You could even feel better than this. But the fact is, the peak is the peak. And if we try to eat more, drink more, whatever it is, what happens is you fall, you crash. So there's like, it goes straight down. The parabola goes straight down, and you end up going, ugh. As opposed to what I discovered, if I stopped at satiety, it just sort of floated down over time until I was hungry again. So this true pleasure is a wonderful byproduct of mindful eating. And in this being mindful, we get the opportunity to differentiate between emotional signals and nutritional signals. And we could learn to understand and respond appropriately to emotional signals too, because we certainly do have emotional hungers. I'd like to end with this because when I found it, I was overjoyed. This was in 2013, because it was the wellness report from UC Berkeley School of Public Health. So that sounds pretty important. And they agree with us. They said, overriding the environment, becoming mindful. The best way to override environmental food triggers overall is to practice intuitive eating, in which you don't count calories, you don't measure food or even restrict foods, but instead use internal cues to guide you about when and how much to eat. The related concept of mindful eating draws on traditional mindfulness meditation techniques and involves increasing awareness and decreasing distraction. In this case, paying attention to what you eat, savoring each bite, acknowledging what you like and don't like, and choosing foods that please and nourish you, just like we said. This approach also helps you identify any emotional triggers that may be making you overeat, such as eating when you're stressed, depressed, upset, angry, lonely, even happy and excited. We know that. Research suggests that the more intuitive or mindful you are, the less likely you are to respond to external cues and overeat. So I think that's very well read, very well said, and perfect way to end. And basically, mindfulness-based approaches literally make sense. We're not talking about cognitive things making sense, building on cognitive thoughts, but that this makes sense. We can touch it, we can smell it, we can feel it. So this is what sense is. And it is becoming very clear that mindfulness-based approaches are essential ingredients to improve self-regulation. So I've said everything I have to say. Oops. I don't know about timing. Are there any comments or questions?
Yes, feel free. This is Michelle again. That was very excellent, Alice. Thank you very, very much. We are a little past the hour of noon, so if you need to go, please feel free to go. Before you go, that's okay. Thank you all for attending this free webinar, and thank you again to Alice for presenting it for the Center for Mindful Eating. Donations for these programs are greatly appreciated. If you're not already a member, you can do so at tcme.org/donate. We'd also, again, like to thank our members for their continued support. And this program was recorded. It will be available later today on our website, and I'll notify everyone who registered for the program. Comments coming in, lots of thank yous. A particular thank you for the wood approach to the triangle. And yeah, and people are leaving, so I imagine they need to head back to their day. But thank you again for being here. Another thank you to reground in this practice. And I also noticed, Alice, I think the length of time you took with that mindful eating practice was wonderful. It was very, very good to hold that space. So thank you. It provided a very direct experience as you've ended the program here about literally making sense, and taking the time to do that program was very strong and substantial, in my opinion. Yeah. So I think that's all. I think we'll go ahead and end here. And again, Alice, thank you. I applaud you for your time, and more thank yous are coming in with lots of exclamation points. And I will be sending out an evaluation, so I hope you all do fill that out so we can get feedback on how you experienced this program today, and if you have any suggestions for future programs.
And I would love, feedback. Constructive feedback. It's just important.
Yeah, great. Great. All right, well, thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And with mindfulness, strive on.